Recording on this computer. Just checking that we're working. Looks like we are. That's the good news. Turn this down. We're just basically waiting for people to, I said we would be at 11 a.m. Indiana time. I think we're at 10:59 or thereabouts. So I just want to make sure that people are tuned in. Steve Hickman is watching. Steve, I just wanted to check and make sure that you can hear us okay, that the audio is okay and that you guys are able to hear us. I know that your friend Frank is going to be tuned in. Tim Bailey is watching. So if somebody could just tell me that you guys can hear the audio okay. Hello, Greg Nickel from Speedway Motors. Good to see you guys. So Greg, if you can just let me know that you can hear everything okay. Racing Colin is tuned in. I drove past Oolitic last year, Carl, actually. I went to visit Ray Godsey, who doesn't live too far from you, I don't think.
Couple of miles.
Yeah. Great guy. What a legend of late model racing that man is. Wow.
Yeah, if there any controversy at the racetrack, the Godseys were in on it.
Well, you know, that's called passion, right?
Yeah. Somebody ticked off at every race anyway, so it just will be a Godsey or a Kinser.
Exactly right. That's what you call Indiana domination. When I went down to, I think it's Bedford, isn't it?
Yeah.
That they live in. It was down in the holler, Carl. I started to get a bit worried. I'm like, oof, am I going to find my way out of this place? It was anyway. Mate, thank you so much, Carl. I'm so grateful for your time this morning. I know a lot of people are very excited that you're on here this morning. Folks, if you're watching, if you could press the share button on this, the blue button that just allows you to share this live so as many people can participate in this as possible. I'm going to try and keep an eye on people's comments and things like that so we can throw some questions in if they like. Carl, whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm at about a mile from my home. I'm up at the Marks. My son and Lois, my granddaughter, you met there. She's doing the computer end of it. I don't have a computer. I don't want one and don't need one.
Thank you, Lois. Lois, of course, that's a name from Superman. But before that, who was Lois named after?
My mother.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's Lois. And like we was talking, lived to be 101 and a half. Grand lady. Read the Bible 3 times through and preached to us kids, but I don't know if it done a lot of good at times.
I'm sure that you, in the back of your mind, with a lot of things you did, Carl, your mother's voice was still in the back of your mind, right?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah. If you don't work, you don't eat. So get with it.
Absolutely. Can you please tell me about life for little Carl? Tell me about your mom and dad, please.
Well, my mother worked at RCA at Bloomington, the television factory. I graduated from high school in '55 on a Friday, went to work on a Monday at RCA. Myself and my mother done worked there for, I guess, 8 or 10 years. And I graduated when I was, 16, went to work when I was 16, but you're supposed to be 18. Oh. So I'm redheaded, freckled, and when you go to work back then, all the companies, which was about 7 or 8, come around to the high schools and pass out applications. You could go to work instantly. A lot of my classmates quit school and went to work at television plants, wherever. And so anyway, we're walking down the assembly lines to be checked in, and I hear them all hollering, "Get the shopster," it said they're hiring child labor. And I didn't realize it's me because, redheaded, freckled, 16 years old. So they put me to work. Of course, I lied about my age. But anyway, my mom worked upstairs, and all the ladies up there working on the assembly line, they would ask my mom, said, "Is that a little redheaded kid down there your son?" And oh yeah. Well, boy, is he old enough to work here? And she said, "Yeah, but he looks awful young for his age." That was the big deal in RCA for 6 months,
Is that right?
trying to get me out of there.
Oh, really? Because they
Oh,
just
the union, the union didn't want me in there. But I never will forget it. My first week's pay was $53.12. And I'm telling you, I was in financial heaven.
Do you remember the first thing that you bought with your paycheck?
Some gas for my car. It wasn't built yet, but I went and bought gasoline. I bought gasoline at 18 cents a gallon. Can you believe that?
Wow. What is it? $4
Good
something?
old days went.
Yeah. So growing up in Oolitic, how many people lived in Oolitic when you were growing up?
Probably 800.
Okay.
I think about a population of 2,000 now.
Okay.
It's a good little town. You can get out and beat on the drum all night. Nobody gives a damn, and it's not like shut your mouth and be quiet. You can kind of do whatever you want to, and it's a nice place to live.
Absolutely. And for those that you are tuning in, we've got the truly wonderful Karl Kinser. It's such an honor to speak to this icon of American dirt track racing. Please press the share button on your Facebook pages so we can share this out to as many people and celebrate Karl here this morning. Or there's a lot of people watching from Australia tonight, so I know it's already Saturday night late there. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning on the east coast of Australia, and I can see a number of Aussies have waited up to be
the time. I always was confused how to figure the time out. So as is the sun shining.
It's 15 hours ahead right now. So it's 1 o'clock in the morning on the east coast, and it's 11 o'clock at night on the west coast. And I want to talk to you about Australia soon. So tell me about your brothers and sister, Karl. How many brothers and sister? How many siblings do you have?
I have two. I have a daughter, Carla, and Mark, my son.
Okay. And your brothers and sister when you were growing up?
I had 3 brothers and a sister. My older brother, well, one younger than me and one older, we was all in on the race car as a family project, I guess, and I kind of took care of it. And my younger brother, Terry, if anybody goes to the good land after this, he'll be him because he is a grand fellow. I mean, he likes everybody, nothing bad about anybody. But me and my younger brother and older brother is a little different story.
So your mom lived to be 101.5, you said?
Yes. Yep. Wow. Grand lady.
Something about the genes in the Kinser family, because yourself, how old are you now, Karl?
I'm 84. And no problems. My older brother, no problems, just hair getting gray and can't run as fast as we used to, but everything's good.
Excellent. What, growing up in Oolitic, what did you do for fun? What was your way with your brothers and your buddies for fun?
Well, I opened a garage in Oolitic in probably about 1959, 60, along in there, and a little 1-horse stall garage, with a light bulb upstairs burning, couldn't see. But anyway, just worked on cars and just beat out a living, and which was pretty hard to do. And it's a railroad track, went right by the old shop. And it was rough. You couldn't believe how rough that old railroad track was. And everybody hit that in their car and they'd knock something off or a spring break. It kept me busy keeping cars out of the street and fixing them on account of that old railroad track.
That's a good thing.
Hilarious, really, as you thinking about it.
thank God you didn't have a smooth road next to your shop. It might have cut the clientele down.
Yeah. Well, everybody back then, a lot of people didn't even have a car, in the late 50s. And if it was something that was left over from the war area that should have been parked anyway. I mean, it's just something to get to town in and buy some groceries. And it definitely, in those years, it was, they say the good old days. Sometimes I wonder if that's very, very right or not. I mean, there's a lot of things that's better, but a lot of people don't appreciate it, I don't think. So there you go.
So, Karl, whenever I told anybody that you and I were going to be talking, they all said, oh, wow, that's going to be a hoot. Aside from everything you've done with race cars, and we're going to talk about them later, everybody knows Karl as this character, this like ornery little kid that I can't even imagine what little Karl was like. Did you get in trouble at school, or were you a good kid?
No, I was in the office probably every 2 weeks. We was talking, a lot of the kids went to work, my classmates. There's only 9 of us graduated, the smallest class ever out of Smithville, which is up the road about 9 miles.
Yep.
And I was 2 years younger in everybody in the class because I got a double promotion when I skipped the second grade, went from first to third. So that put me way younger than the rest of the class.
Yep.
And about 3 of the girls in the class would, whatever I'd do, they'd try to imitate it or whatever. And when I went to the office, normally there's 1 or 2 of them went with me because we was all into it at the same time. Quite bizarre. And in health class one time, which was the coach teaching health class, and he said, Kinser said, what's the most sensitive nerves in your body? And I hadn't read the book, and I sat there and thought for about 10 seconds, and I said, your eyes. He said, get to the office. It's not your eyes, it's the end of your fingers. So anyway, that's one of my trips.
I imagine that trip you might have found another sensitive part of your body. Did you get a rap on the A55?
Hey, one time, yes, I did. When I was a senior, there was a lady, a student teacher, come from IU, which is up the road about 5 miles from high school. And she was in the health class, built like a brick, you know what. Of course, here I am, younger than the rest of the guys. And 2 of my buddies caused this in school. She'd get up the blackboard and they'd give her that old wolf whistle.
Oh.
She thought it was me.
Oh.
To the office I went, and principal, Alvy Bodkins, called her up and said what was going on. And she told her. And he said, well, I'm going to give you a week out of school or whatever she wants to do. And he asked her, and she said, well, I'll paddle him, me and another boy. She hit me 3 licks with that big old paddle, and my rump was red for a week. Oh boy, don't. And if you done that now, I'd have had her thrown in jail, I guess. You know how it is.
Yeah.
You can't. The kid gets unruly. Hey, I never went to the principal again after that.
3 good paddles was all it took, huh?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was quite embarrassing too.
Yeah. Well, I bet you found where the most sensitive part of your body wasn't the end of your fingers that day.
Yeah. Oh no, boy. Bad deal.
Karl, where did your passion for fast cars come from? Was it something that you and your brothers both fell into, or where did you, because you were drag racing originally, right?
Yeah, we actually, a lot of the younger set around Bedford, Indiana, and out in the country, which I'm about 10 miles from Bedford, where I was raised. Everybody, that was a teenager or 25, in their 20s, like to go to the drag races. So we got into drag racing. and worked and worked and spent all of our money. Of course, drag racing didn't pay nothing. So we run drag for probably 8 years or something like that. And finally, we blew the motor at Owensboro, Kentucky. And I called Chevrolet at Bedford and wanted to buy a 396 engine. They just come out with the big block. We run a small block with a blower on it, and they wouldn't sell us one. The company said, well, we can't build enough to even put in the cars. I kind of made me mad.
Yep.
Whereas one of them wasn't part of my mother's belief. Anyway, I told my brothers, I said, well, let's sell this GE thing and we'll buy one of these oval tracks. We go to the races around here all the time, and wherever we run, they pay us a little something. So we bought us a car off of Diz Wilson at Mitchell. The History Mystery Man done a deal on Diz. Diz raced for years and years.
Yep.
And bought that old car from Diz and run it a year. And then I thought, well, this thing is a fossil. It was an old CAE with a 3-inch frame and a spring front. Horrible. So we built our own car after that. And so everything you went to buy was heavy. I mean, heavy, you know. Joe Baker at Indianapolis done a lot of the building stuff for the Speedway, done wheels for the Indy cars and all that stuff. And they had come out with the on TV about the aluminum, you know, being 70, 75, T23 and all that, how stout it was and equal to some of it better than steel. So I go to Joe and say, Joe, how about building me some torsion bars out of aluminum? Oh, no. He said, I know you're going to kill yourself. And I said, why? He said, well, it won't hold up. And I said, well, according to the TV, it will. He wouldn't do it.
Wow.
So I thought, well, Jesus criminy. So Laverne Nance, which built some cars for Sammy. Sammy ran for Laverne.
Oh, yes.
One nice guy that Laverne was. Him and his wife were one of the golden bunches of racing, helped everybody at all the races down through there. So Laverne was building an aluminum axle, tapered aluminum axle. And I called Laverne and he said, well, yeah, he said, I was thinking about that. And I said, well, I'll send you one of my old steel bars and you just duplicate it. So he went to making aluminum torsion bars, aluminum steering arms, everything aluminum, everything down. If you mention steel around a sprint car race, you'll probably get run off, you know, for a competitive car. So I got all that stuff built and lightened everything myself. I had a Halibrand aluminum, not aluminum, but steel axle in the car, the old 3-inch axle, which weighed a ton. I bought a lathe that would go in, that axle would fit in, and I turned about 100 thousandths off that axle. Must have got 10 or 12 pounds off of the axle, you know, just stuff.
Heads up.
Down at the shop till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing you know, we have a car that, well, if you used a little common sense and didn't crash or something, you was going to be in the top 2 every race because of nobody was that light and everybody had an in and out box with a short torque tube. And when the track was heavy, that was good. But if it got a little slick, it's bad.
Yeah.
I made that long torque tube and hooked the U-joint to the crankshaft. It gets a little slick and we just drive by them and laugh at them, kind of snigger in the trailer. But anyway, of course, you know, everybody caught up pretty quick. And that's where everything's at today. It's really competitive. And well, the price of everything, you know, it just kind of, the ones that the family's got money's left. And Rico come down to the garage about a week and a half ago. We had a good time. He's a grand guy. I'll tell you what, my brother still goes to the races. Some I don't go because I get a passion or you know what I'm saying. So anyway, when Rico's down, my brother talked me into going. He said, you got to go see that guy run. So we went to Lawrenceburg, not this year, last year, last race of the season, the outlaw race. He said, Rico's going to be there. I said, well, stop and get me. So we go to Lawrenceburg.
Yep.
Rico don't show up.
Oh.
I said, well, Jesus Christ, he's like George Jones. He's a no-show. Anyway, whenever he come down, I said, well, I got a crow to pick with you right off. I said, we drive 120 miles to go to Lawrenceburg and turn cold, and I like to froze, and you wasn't there, and the reason I went to see you. Has anybody ever called you George Jones? And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, he's a no-show. What to say.
Did you enjoy that night? Did you enjoy the races? What did you make of that?
Good. Yeah, it was good, I think. I'm trying to think who did win it, but it was a good race.
Okay.
And, but they've changed that track from when I ran. It's banked up, mini Eldora, I guess you'd call it.
Okay.
And it's definitely a lot nicer facility.
Did you race ever yourself, Karl? Did you actually drive yourself, or were you always happy to be the builder?
Well, whenever we got I drove the drag car, but when we got into oval track, I was married and 2 kids, young kids.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Mark might have been a year old or something like that, and Carla 3. But anyway, I got to thinking, well, my brother said, you want to drive this? And I said, I have to think about that. Because, you know, we've been going to the races and rumble tumble and racing. It's not absolutely a secure factor.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about it, and I thought, well, with the kids, I said, no, I'm not interested. So we put Larry Miller in it and had about a 5-year run or 6-year, 7-year run with Miller, won a lot of races. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Steve's dad said when they raced Evansville down at Hobstadt, Indiana, he said, I don't care what they're paying to win. He said, I want to know what they're paying per second because you ain't going to beat Larry Miller anyway.
You were telling me before that how you went that night depended on, you know, you had enough money at least to buy a hamburger on the way home, right?
Yeah. We ran, me and my 2 brothers run our cars for about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. We never did, we got to run good locally. And we made a little money, but hell, he's racing for $300 to win the feature, and had a special race, $1,000 to win or whatever. Yep. But we accumulated a little pothole of money.
Yep.
But we never did spend it. We used it to update the car all the time.
Yep.
And that's how, when the outlaw thing come along, it was like my mom said, maybe it's God sent for me. Because I had, well, ain't no doubt, I had the best car in the USA or worldwide, because it was probably 150, 200 pounds lighter than anybody else. And I bought all titanium bolts and whatever, because we had this little pothole of money, and we never raced for a profit anyway then. But whenever the outlaw thing come along, you better be racing for some money, because you was running out of state all the time, motel bills and just whatever, and you run up against a lot better competition than you did locally. When you went to the local race around here, There was probably 5 drivers probably would win the race.
Mhm.
Well, when you went out on the road, it was the best of the USA because a $10,000 to win purse was unheard of.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Now then, you better be on it. And we were.
I'm thinking
So
about
anyway,
this.
it was, we made a little money out of it, but we
I'm
had a
thinking,
good time.
Carl, you're a 16-year-old kid that's too young to work at the television factory. Then you have your own business with a little old light bulb when you're working till 3 in the morning on fixing old cars from the railroad road next to your business. To within a few short years, you have the fastest sprint car in America. That's pretty cool.
Well, it was all common sense. Leon Hubble, a racing legend out of Indiana, he's gone now.
Yep.
Anyway, one night I'm in there working on our first race car, and this green truck pulls up and parks out there by the garage, got 3 axles under the rear. And I thought, well, who in the hell is this? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And this guy walks in. I didn't know Leon Hubble. He walks in, walks around that old car, looks at me, and he said, what do you think you're doing? And I said, well, this thing will not do nothing on a slick track. I'm putting me some ballast on the back. He said, oh my God. He said, to get that off of there, he said, you're doing the wrong thing. You won't take the weight off of the car. So we talked a little while and all that. And that first old car, the old CAE, had parallel bars, little short arms in the back about this long out like this. I mean, you'd hit a bump and knock the helmet off the driver's head. I mean, it sprang front. It was just horrible.
Yep.
So I said, are you serious? And he said, you know who I am? And I said, no, I don't. He said, well, I'm Leon Hubble. And I said, oh, I've heard of you. And he raced USAC, IMCA and all that, no robot or whatever. And Diz was running against, he's running against Diz too. So I thought, well, maybe this guy knows something. And so I didn't put the weight on the old car. I went to taking the junk off of it.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
So that kind of started the weight upgrade.
Yep.
And so anyway, you couldn't make that old car get a hold of slick track. It's built wrong. I mean, you know, anyway, but in the day, everybody run them and everybody's equal. So it didn't really matter to nobody. If nobody got a hold of it, so what? They had a race. Well, when I was teenager and go to the races around here, they was running the old coupe cars, what they call a jalopy now, but it was what was up classic back then. Yep. And Roy Robbins and all the guys, Orville Yaden and just everybody ran an old coupe car. Well, we go watch them run, and the qualifying times off 4 or 5 seconds from what it would be in the 80s.
Yep.
But it didn't matter. It was a competition. You know, everybody, oh my God, what a race. Well, hell, you could tuck a tricycle and kept up with them in the modern day thinking, but it didn't matter.
Yep.
So I don't know, evolution may be good or may be bad.
Well, either way, it still evolves, doesn't it? So it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. We can't stop it changing.
Yes.
You, Dick Gaines was the next guy that drove for you, and you had phenomenal success with Dick. But it was actually his fading eyesight, Carl. Is that right? That sort of he just went to you and said, "I can't see."
Well, what happened? He got in an accident in Illinois, and pretty bad. I mean, it broke his sternum. And he was in one of my car, one of my lightweight car. Mm-hmm. Well, we, like Bob Steve's dad said we was running good, and we was going to Knoxville, and he said, well, he said, I'm telling you, good as you guys are running, he said, Dick will win Knoxville, and he did. Beat Opperman about a wheel, but it didn't matter if it was a mile, it was a win.
Yeah.
So anyway, this guy got sideways on the very first lap. Dick got over his front wheel and end over end, no wing. And when you have a sudden stop, according to the doctors, any car wreck or whatever, it messes you have blood vessels in your eye, and them can't stand the shock, and they'll rupture, and you get this blood spot floating around in the crystal of your eye.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened to Dick. We went to Indianapolis. Me and Dick went to the doctor up there twice. And the doctor told him, said, well, we can operate on that. Or he said that will go away in time.
Okay.
So, well, Dick said, well, how long? He said, well, that I don't know. Yeah. He said it might be a month. It might be 6 months. It might be 6 years, but it'll eventually leave. Well, Dick quit driving for me. He drove a couple times for Briscoe locally. And so he just gave it up. He said, them spots, when that spot gets in a certain, between your retina, you'll just see a big black spot.
Oh.
And that's not good racing. So that's kind of was a demise of Dick Gaines, one of them accidents that should have never happened. But he definitely was, he was a good guy in the seat, I'll say that. He was spectacular, really. Could adjust to anything, run pavement. We won Winchester, Salem, wherever Dick driving, and it didn't matter. He just, I don't know.
You did have a lot of success at places like that on the asphalt, but you said that whilst you loved winning there, it was just never as much fun or never as much in your heart as running on the dirt. Is that right?
No, the pavement never. Winchester and Salem, you can have a race without being a gladiator, kill yourself. Yeah. If anything happens, you're history.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys went over the wall at Salem that survived. Mark Codwell and the guys telling you about in the old grain truck. They survived it, but there's about 4 that didn't. Yeah. It's just, if you went over the fence at Salem, you was just basically history.
Yeah.
And,
when it came down to finding a new driver, is it true that there was just 2 really that you were choosing between? One of them was Danny Smith and one was some guy called Steve Kinser? Yeah,
that's a fact. Paul Elrod that was helping me when Dick ran, he was going to Florida and I am building a car. And I said, I haven't got time to, go down there and whatever. And I said, while you're down there, take a look at some of the younger drivers and see who you think be a good guy to get to run this thing. So when Elrod got back and he said, well, there are only 2. He said, that's Steve and Danny Smith. And we probably, I knew Danny's dad. Yep. He drove, matter of fact, he drove that old car I bought from Diz.
Really?
Mike Smith did.
Yeah. Wow.
So I said, well, Steve, they lived up the road, do now, about 5 miles from me. And I said, well, me and my brothers talked, and we decided we would hire Steve because he's close. If we need to talk to him or whatever, no discredit to Danny Smith or whatever. It was just a location thing for us, something easier.
Yep.
And so we hired Steve, and we go to Paragon, the first race, and Steve wins in my car, but never will forget it. He come in, he said, oh my God, he said, this is so smooth engine. He said, this thing it'll drive itself. And Doug Wolfgang got in at one time down in Houston, Texas. Steve was late to getting there to qualify and come in. And he said the same thing. He said, you guys are cheating us. He said, you can let loose a steering wheel in this thing and it'll go around the racetrack.
So you had Doug Wolfgang in your car. That would have seemed to be, well, putting the enemy in your hot rod to some degree. Were you not concerned about that, Karl? I mean, Doug Wolfgang was your main rival for a lot of years.
Well, if just for hot laps, it wasn't a race. But anyway, no, hey, if my driver can't get there, I'm going to put somebody in it. Yeah, who knows? He may be asleep at the wheel somewhere.
Yep.
You know, and but anyway, it was no problem, you know. And
wow. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. But Karl, I just love your passion. You still seem so in love with life at 84 years of age. It seems like you're still a firecracker. You still seems like you just love life so much.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's good if you got good health. Age don't have much to do with it. I'm down there now underneath a 54 Buick convertible, working on it for a guy every day, you know, busting my knuckles. And, you know, it's just, what are you going to do? Lay down and die? Or sit up and die, I guess. But, you know, it's just no problem. My brother, older brother, run a sawmill for 60 some years, worked. I'm telling you, that guy worked harder than 3 men put together. And they all talk about slavery. I can tell you one thing. We worked timber with a crosscut saw, horses, and they are such a thing as white slavery. But everybody, no matter skin color, everybody's got a right for his own protection, his own whatever.
Yeah.
But I think in that era of my youth, it was you either work or you don't eat. We didn't have electricity till I was 12 years old.
Wow.
Come the local electric company run the pole and the line down and a little meter about this big around on the side of the old log house. You drilled a hole in the wall and run a wire over here to a pull switch. None of the houses were insulated. None of them had wiring in them. But that one light bulb to us was a miracle. You could see, well, the reason everybody had a big family back when they didn't have electricity, come dark, guess what? Everybody went to bed.
Well, there was no television, right?
No TV. My granddad had 12 kids. I mean, I tell you, things have went a long way. I've seen a guy go to the moon. They're thinking about going again. I don't know what the hell for.
Karl, I met you for the first time in 2000 at the Topeka Outlaw race on the paperclip. I know that Brad Doty is watching right now. Brad was the guy that interviewed you for me.
Yes.
And Peter Murphy has just tuned in as well. So I know that Murph is excited to see you as well. You told me at the time, Karl, that you hadn't been home to mow your lawns in 35 years or something crazy like that. How was the toll on your beautiful wife and your family when you're out on the road smashing down the miles? That had to be hard.
It was now it's harder than it seemed then, but my wife took care of my place, the yard, mowed the yards, the place here, she mowed the yards, took care of this place. Mark had this little, what we called a send-in, built before he's married, but she took care of this place, both places. I never went to either one of my kids' graduation because I was on the road. Yeah. Now I wished I'd have went.
Yeah.
But hindsight don't pay much.
Yeah.
You know, it's
yeah.
But whatever the kids want, they get now.
Yeah, yeah.
How else could you put it, I guess? But it's tough. Any of them guys that run the World of Outlaw and their families all time, all of them paid a memory price.
Yeah, it's
Just
a
no
beautiful
matter.
way of putting it. It's a really. Tell me about Diane. Tell me about her. She had some health problems this time last year when you and I were trying to put this together. But how is she now?
She has COPD, and she is an oxygen user. Some.
Yeah.
She's not good. COPD don't get better. It progressively gets worse, but we can still get out and go to a drive-in restaurant, take a little drive, and but she is, I guarantee you, she's done her share, more than her share. She done everything, and for Mark and even our own household, and we built us a log house in 75, and took me a year to build it. The energy crunch come along, it coming again, I guess. I had my car lot in Oolitic. Well, gasoline goes from 39.9 to $3 or whatever it was then. You couldn't give a car away that didn't get 30 mile a gallon. If you had a field full of Volkswagens, they'd all been gone in one day. I'm telling you. So I sold everything that would get any gas mileage instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, oh my God, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So anyway, after that, I sat there watching the traffic go by. And I thought, well, hell, what am I doing here? So I take all my cars to the sale, had everything paid for,
Wow.
sold them all. And I told the wife, I said, well, we had a new house built, a modern home. And I always wanted a log home because we lived in an old log house when I was a kid. I don't know why it made me want one. So my brother had the sawmill.
Yeah.
So he sawed the logs for me and I built the house. I spent a year with two kids that had just graduated from high school.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of them has passed away that helped me build the house, and the other one is not good. He had an accident, but anyway, built my home. And then after I got that done, we kind of got to racing full time or some. And at my body shop, I used that for the race car, and I do a body job occasionally, a little extra pennies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then the outlaw thing come along. So, hey, I'm not obligated, Yeah. So we hit the road in an open wheel trailer and a tire rack and a dually Ford pickup truck, 76, I think it was. Went to everywhere in that thing, Canada, Skagit, Washington. We was at Skagit, and they've gone. Our next race is at Winnipeg. And I thought, well, hell, that ain't very far. How do I get there? Well, you go out here about 40 miles, and you cross in the border, and I forget the number of the road, highway. We get on that, and I see this sign. What the world was it at 800 miles to Winnipeg? And I thought, are you kidding me? We go across there. Absolutely. We get to Winnipeg and we're so tired and sleepy, you couldn't even see the racetrack, but we had one day to catch up, I think. Racetrack, so rough. I think we broke down, something broke or something. I think Rick Perkle won the race. Lee Osborne, Lee James, and all them guys there, Sammy. But anyway, it's definitely trying. Oh my God. I'm telling you, if you're going from Skagit, Washington to Winnipeg, pack you a box lunch. Over nothing but wheat fields and mosquitoes. We go up there to North Dakota and run, and you're in Canada, you're going north. I wouldn't have thought there would be mosquitoes. I'm telling you, them things in the wet season, There's so many of them things, they dim the lights at the racetrack swarming. The guy working on the car, you'd take an air hose and hold a light for him and blow the mosquitoes off his back with an air hose. I never seen nothing like it. I said, I told, I said, when I got home, I said, I'm telling you, them things will aggravate you so bad you want to kill your mother. Jesus Christ. We're at the restaurant, stayed there at the motel, and they had a Denny's or something there. And I'm sitting in there eating breakfast, and this local guy come out. I thought was I said, "Are you local?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what do you do about the mosquitoes?" And he said, "Well, nothing." And I said, "Well, we're up here for the races, and out there, they're them things will pack you off." He said, "Well, the only thing you can do is just don't go out after dark."
Oh, well, that's okay then.
Oh my God.
Out of all the
flies in Australia or worse.
Out of all the things I wrote down, I never wrote down anything about asking you about mosquitoes in Canada. I'm just going to add that, you know, that little kid that got his ass paddled for wolf whistling at the principal.
Well, I didn't do it, Doug. Correct. No. And I didn't wolf whistle, my buddies.
Right. You got paddled for it.
Oh, yes. I paid the price.
That little kid traveled the world. Like you imagine that principal's thinking this young fella's going to be in trouble. Look at, you traveled the world, Karl, like Canada too, but of course Australia as well. What an incredible life you've led through racing.
Well, we went, like I say, we went everywhere. You know, my buddy, Brian Healy, we got to know him when we run the old Gold Cup there at Sacramento. We crashed bad, tore the car up. You can't believe. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this fellow walks up after the race over and said, "Hey, mate." I thought, what's he mean, mate? His mate?
Yep.
It kind of insulted me a little bit. So he said, "You guys got a place to work on your car?" And I said, "Well, no, just a motel lot." And he said, "Well, I got a little towing service down the street from your motel." And he said, "It's nothing to brag about. Hold 2 cars in there and about 3 car storage out back." He said, "You guys are welcome to get in out of the sun if you want to bring that down and work on it." He gave me his phone number.
Yeah.
So the next day I thought, it was hot. Oh my God, 102, I think. So I called him. He said, "Well, come on down." We get down there and this car is bent sideways 6 inches. And so we work on it for 2 full days. Still can't even get the motor bolted back in it. We got to go to Skagit in a day and a half to race Skagit.
Yep. And
again, from Sacramento to Skagit is about like going across Canada. First time up through there, I didn't know how long it was and all this. It was like 12, 14 hours or something to Skagit. Going to Fred Brownfield's place. Fred said, "You bring her up, and I got stuff there and help you or whatever you need to do." And Audie Swartz's son, Charlie, had the Loretta Lynn trailer.
Yep.
2 cars in it. C.K. Spurlock was making the Gambler cars in.
Yep.
We're going up there and up this long, I guess you call it a mountainside. My old Ford truck just putting along behind him, and Charlie come over the speaker and said, "We're on fire, we're on fire, stop, stop." And I said, "Who's on fire?" And he said, "We are." And he said to the guys helping him, I think had 2 guys helping him, he said, "Get the cars out of the trailer, get the cars out of the trailer." So I back up, give enough room, get both cars. I thought the trailer's on fire. Well, they unload the cars right quick and everything, and all it was, the air compressor locked up and the belt was on fire. It smoked it. Nobody driving there had no sense. It couldn't smell, I don't guess. I don't know what they're smoking. But anyway, they finally get the belt out and all that and load everything back up and off we go. So I go to Fred's place. And then he wasn't racing the other track, just Skagit. So finally, we get this thing all bolted up and the motor in it, and like about 3/4 of an inch of the front girdle going in to hold the motor. We took a big chain and a pry bar, pried her over, put the bolts in, went to the track. Guess what?
What?
Crashed again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did. We towed that old car. It was in shambles now. We wasn't going to Winnipeg. We was going to Oolitic, Indiana's our Eldora, I think's our next race.
Yeah.
So off we go, tow all the way nonstop from Skagit to Oolitic, Indiana, 500 billion miles, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
That old Ford Dually that had an old 360 in it. We come to Albuquerque. At the grade going east out of Albuquerque, we stopped our little get and go. Man, Elrod run in, got us a sandwich, and Steve was with us, and he's laying in the bunk. He said, "What are you guys doing?" He said, "We're going to never get home." And I said, "Well, why don't you drive some?" So then Elrod come out with a sandwich or something. So he jumps out and goes in, gets a Coke or something, and he said, "I'll drive." I said, "Have at her." He hit that grade, and time we get to the top of it. Now, you can almost walk and keep up with that old truck, pulling all that stuff. That old race car tore all the hell on it. He gets on top, and he said few bad words, and he said, "I ain't driving no more." And I said, "I tried to tell you." So we make it home, get the car, get this thing straightened up and take off and go to Eldora. From Skagit to Eldora, I think was like a 4-day deal before the race. And that's one of them unbelievable trips. Oh my God, you talk about wore out. Oh.
Karl, I've met people in America that have never been out of their state, and some have never really left their county. You've seen some of the most incredible parts of your country. I imagine the sunset coming up over the Pecos. I imagine when you've been up north, you've done some remarkable things for a little kid from a town of 800 people. Do you look back on that and go, "Yeah, you know what, the racing was one thing, but boy, I saw some incredible parts of the world"?
Well, I did, but at the time, now this may sound a little bit, however, that scenery kind of registered, but there's always that thought, we got to get to going here because we're the next race, and we got to get prepared. And that scenery was kind of a second thought. Now I can look back now and enjoy that scenery more than I could then, because the main goal was a racetrack, and that scenery thing was, you seen the racetrack in it, no matter where he's at. The next race is Eldora. You look at the scenery in the Pecos, and Eldora's there somewhere. It's unbelievable that you could get so tied up in something, I guess. And
it wasn't so much the journey. You were thinking about the destination. You were thinking about what we got to do, and probably already thinking about your setup for Eldora too. Probably not tuned into that sun gleaming through the.
Eldora, they was no magic in them cars. Them cars, if your driver was up and at them, if he's standing up in the seat, meant a lot. And you had to have a car well prepared not to fall out. And everybody, after the outlaw thing got to going and we raced for 10 years, and everybody said, "Well, Kinser's got more money, you can't outdo him, he'd spend the money." Well, I can tell them one thing: Karl Kinser was flat ass broke when the outlaw started. I either was up front or I was at the house, because the purse money kept us out there. And I'll say one thing: Steve, he was in the class of the elite dirt track drivers. And a lot of credit goes to him. He's won races that when he come in, I said, I'd tell him, well, the driver won this one, I didn't. And it was true. And one of the most vivid things kind of stands out for the racing, how good he was, how good my car was. We go to Pennsylvania for 11 races. Williams Grove, Hilltop, whatever that is, Middletown, the old horse track. And we won 9 out of 11 races. And this is when Smokey Snellbaker, Lynn Paxton, all of them guys are still running. Bobby Allen, all of them. Pennsylvania was a hotbed. California was the good looks. You go to California, my car looked absolutely horrid. I mean, you know, the chrome and the paint, if you wasn't all chrome and painted up in California, you dog shit. You know what I mean? I mean, and kind of on that thought of how the car looked, Dick Gaines was running the car when we won Knoxville Nationals. We used to run an Eldora weekly, every Saturday night. Okay. Eldora will beat your car up because of the speed. A dirt car knocked the paint off. That old car looked, well, awful. For his paint, no chrome, no nothing. We went Knoxville Nationals when we beat Opperman, and there's a man and a woman walked down through there, probably 70, 75, him and his wife. She stopped and looked at that car, you know. She said, well, I can tell you one thing, this thing is awful ugly, but it'll run.
Well, you took the check home.
Yeah, right. $4,000 in, and now it pays $175, whatever it was. And you know, my personal feelings of like Knoxville and Eldora by Steve, me and Steve there all the time when they had an outlaw race and sometimes not an outlaw race. And I guess people come to see the best, if you know what I mean. I'm not bragging on myself, but anyway, I think me and Steve Kinser, Dick Gaines, all of them guys that run good at Knoxville and they know he's going to be there, and noted dirt trackers, I think we played a big place in what Knoxville pays now and what Eldora pays now. Me and Earl Baldus has went around a couple of times. He always won. But got the point across.
You said you're not going to brag on yourself, and I appreciate what you're saying there, Karl. But you know, you guys were so good that somebody flew an aeroplane over Knoxville that said anyone but Kinser. Now you had to take that as a huge compliment.
I did, and I said, well, the dumb ass will probably run out of gas and crash and kill himself for the race if he's that stupid.
Tell me about the bus. You drove a bus a few times here, Karl. I recall you here at the Knoxville Nationals. I'm sitting about, you could throw a tennis ball under the bleachers from where I'm sitting right now. Do you recall a bus to nowhere, anywhere at all around these parts?
It was, it had a little sinister to it. My first trip to Knoxville, first one.
Yeah.
They had the driveway made a circle around by the grandstand and back out on the road. The fans could drive through there and around the old Arizona barn after the race. We all go in there and they'd be people drinking, shooting dice, playing cards, just having a good time. And they were some couple of idiots come out there with some crooked dice, and they's going to hang them. Well, that kind of stopped all that.
Yeah.
country boy party, an honest party.
Yep.
Dick Sutcliffe, now this is the truth. There are about 6 of us over there in the corner shooting dice. I like to play dice.
Yep.
So this lady was a playing, good looking, stacked. So Chuck Amati come up and went to playing. And Chuck, he's a bragging on her and all this and hitting a little bit on this lady. Nobody, I don't know who she is. I don't care. Well, this guy come pecks Chuck on the shoulder. Sutcliffe, about 6'3", 4, 210.
Yep.
His son pitched baseball for Kansas City, I think it was.
Oh.
The Sutcliffe.
Yeah.
He run dirt track all the
Oh.
time. Nick did. Good, pretty good. He said, hey, little man. Chuck was only about 5'2", 3. He said, hey, little man. Said, she's with me. And Chuck said, yes, she is.
No argument here.
Oh, that was so funny. I said, hey, little man.
You know, Karl, whoever followed Steve Kinser was on a hiding to nothing. What a massive responsibility for your son, Mark, to team up with you and pick up from the greatest sprint car driver of all time. That had to be a lot of pressure on Mark. Do you think he felt that?
Well, you know, the Kinser name in racing, like Steve's dad was running all these old dirt tracks when they run the old coupes and everything. And then Steve and all that. And Steve run go-karts. Tell you a little story about Steve and a go-kart. Terry Cummings, yet today, has the engine shop in Bedford, does a lot of race engines, rebuilds and everything for the guys. They all used to run go-kart.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve and Randy had an old go-kart. Steve wouldn't work on it. Well, anyway, so they're at somewhere racing. Terry Cummings told me the story. He said, well, Cecil Beaver's a legend in his own right in dirt track racing, and 2 or 3 other ones run the go-karts. They's out of sprint car racing, but they, you know. Like
Yeah.
So they're there, and Terry said, in the feature, he said the race is about half over, and he said, I'm leading the race, and he said, boy, I'm feeling good. My carts are running good, and he said, I got them today. And he said, it wasn't 5 laps later. Here comes Steve Kinser around the outside of me. The wheels are wobbling and this thing is smoking so bad I couldn't even see the racetrack. And he said, when the race is over, I can't even see him. And he said, I'm telling you, that's how good that guy is. And he was only, I guess, 14, 15 years old then.
Oh,
and Terry Cummings said, I'm telling you, he's the one.
Wow. At that time. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and Steve run a car, run some USAC, a few races, USAC, Winchester, and what? Well, they built the wings, the wing shop. He was a Ken Smith, really good, and Steve run his car some, and he got health kind of got in the way a little bit. And he kind of retired from the wings and moved to Florida. And Steve was without a ride. And but anyway, he for his age and his ability, he was unbelievable, really.
Absolutely. Greatest of all time. They use that term GOAT a lot. Steve Kinser is the GOAT, and you are the GOAT, Karl, because you are such a formative part of all of that. You traveled. You talked before about how hindsight never pays back, and that you lived a life without your children and without your wife for a lot of it. Isn't it beautiful that your life went full circle and your boy got in your hot rod and raced with you? So it tied back up, didn't it? Where you got to experience that together.
Yeah, me and Mark got, he went to running for me, and I told Mark, I said, well, we got to stay up front or we're coming home. It's the money's a factor.
Yep.
So anyway, Mark, the fellows that were working his car, we kind of, I done Steve's car with a helper. They done Mark's car with two guys, reputable mechanics.
Yep.
One of them still lives here in Bedford.
Huh.
And Jimmy Jones still runs with a kid. I think they're from California. They're winning races yet. And so I told Mark, I said, well, the fit to run one of these things, you got to be fit. We made a helmet with I think it was a 6 or 8 pound lead weight on top of the helmet.
Huh.
The helmet on. I said, you wear this all winter. Every time he'd come to the shop, now I don't know how much he took it off here, but every time he come to the shop, he had that helmet on, exercising.
Wow.
I'm telling you, the very first race out, Mark Kinser didn't look like the same driver.
All neck strength.
All that, when your neck gets tired, you're out of it.
Yep.
I mean, you have that sense, I ain't used me trying any harder because I ain't gonna do it.
Yes.
And when you're up and at 'em, that's 50% of the driver. And like Doug Wolfgang said a statement or story. We're racing Dallas, I think it was. Wolfie'd been on a 2-mile run, come back, and everybody's out there at the motel, and Wolfie, he's doing his prancing and his leg movement and all this, and the guy walked by and said, Wolfie, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm exercising, getting ready for the race. And he said, well, nobody else is. And he said, let me tell you something. He said, if I don't get out here and exercise, Steve Kinser will lap me. He said, he can sit in there to the bar till 1 o'clock in the morning and I ain't got a chance. He said, that guy, if they ever write a book about sprint car racing, there'd be no words in it. It'd be Steve Kinser's picture on the front of it.
Yeah.
And that's a quote.
Yeah.
Wolfie's good.
Yeah.
Him and Sammy's there, you better have your what up.
Tell me about Mark's strengths as a driver. When he was racing, what made him the driver he was?
Mark, my younger brother Larry, and my sister's husband, Mickey Smith's dad, they had a class around here locally that they run a Briggs Stratton on a go-kart.
Yep.
Okay. They took them while I'm out racing. They took them boys to the go-karts. Okay. Mark got going fairly good in that area of the go-kart thing. And so whenever come time to Mark reaching age or out of school, 18, me and his mom talked about Mark's wanting to drive. And I said, oh my God, not another one. So she said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, if I had my preferences, I'd probably say no. I'm going to kind of leave it up to you. If you think you can stand it.
Yep.
We'll do it.
Okay.
So we had the old car that the mystery man done the legend on, the Big Bertha.
Yep.
It was big block Chevy, heavyweight, everything, just to me, it wasn't a car to be on the road.
Yep.
So I said, well, we can put Mark in that and let him get some experience. So that's what we done. But I told my brother and Mickey's dad, I said, when you go to the racetrack, Mark qualifies, Mark starts on the rear of everything.
Uh-huh.
The heat race, the feature, till he can pass a guy without running over him and tearing his car up and the other guy's car too.
Yep.
Because you guys ain't got time to fool with this thing of fixing it. And you ain't gonna make fuel money that night sitting in the pits. He run 1 year from the rear. So the next year come, still the same car and all that. So I said, well, if Mark qualifies pretty good, getting his qualifying time up, evidently getting a little more experience, I said, start him where he belongs, in the heat, in the feature, what if he makes the feature, whatever. So they did. And he run along that whole season, won one race at Putmanville, and I think been a front axle one time.
Right.
And then the World of Outlaw come along. He wants to go to the Outlaw. What young guy at 20 don't?
Yep.
So I said, well, okay, you can take the car Steve's running. I'll build another new car. Had one almost done. And we'll try it. So Mark does, and he ran anywhere from 12th to 14th, 8th for, quite some time, really. I guess held 3/4 of a season.
Yeah.
But what happens when you went that World of Outlaw, you wasn't running against a local. Here's Sammy, Wolfie, Ferkel, Lee Osborne, Lee James, whoever.
Yep.
I mean, the competition had got a little stiffer.
Yep.
So, and I told Mark, I said, well, what we're going to do, I said, after 1 year of the Outlaw, when it's over, I'm going to ask you, what do you think, if you're going to make it or be able to run with them or what?
Yep.
And the year's over, and I asked him, and Mark said, well, he said, this is going a little harder than I thought.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I said, well, what do you think? You think you're going to make it or not? And he said, boy, I don't really know.
Okay.
And I said, well, okay, we'll try it 1 more year. And after that, I'm going to ask you the same thing. And you better have a better answer, a yes or no.
Yep.
Well, if you don't know, I don't know, and the car's staying home.
Yep.
You can go out here on a public job.
Yep.
You got to make a living.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after the next year's over, I asked him, and he said, yeah, I think I will. And I said, that's good enough for me. And so we just went on from there, him running the second car for, I don't know how many years, 10, 12, I don't know, whatever it was. But anyway, he got to where he's running kind of in the top 5, won 1 or 2, and, and got to going pretty good. And then when Steve went to NASCAR, that was an ill-fated charge. But anyway, beyond all that, Mark got to go, and we went to got that Mopar.
Yes.
Sponsor,
Yes.
which helped money-wise. And you can, with a few extra, I don't think anybody keeps any money in racing. They spend it on something, the car or whatever.
Yep.
More new tires, more this, more that. So got that Mopar thing, and that everybody thought that motor had so much horsepower, but that thing was so smooth. All you had to do is rear back and push the throttle, and don't worry about hitting anybody. You're not going to be spinning the wheels much because it's soft. The motor is soft.
Yep.
And them guys thought that thing, and Mark got to where he'd run that thing down in the corner, 5 cars deeper than anybody, and come out, and that thing wouldn't hardly spin a wheel. It just annihilated everybody. He had all of the big track records across the USA. Eldora, Williams Grove, Knoxville, ran 152 miles per hour on the mile, which we should have never been there. That's not a track for a sprint car. If you do anything on a mile, well, I've seen 3 people get killed there.
Yeah.
It's just not a track. Anything for a sprint car over half a mile is not right. It's too gladiator style. You know, I mean, one little mistake out of anybody and you pay the immortal price. But it's exciting, you know, them short tracks. Oh my God. The little 500 at Anderson pavement, the old saying is a thrill a minute and sometimes sooner. I seen Sheldon Kinser, which is a full cousin to Steve, bang the fence at Anderson. The car flipped over on the side because it run up on the fence, scooted down the track on the roll cage, side of the cage, hit that little berm to the infield, hit that and turned back up on his wheels. This is the fact. Sheldon, he's looking around like that. He didn't even know which way he's going. He's trying to find a car to see which way to give it the gas. That's the thing you ever see. That's true.
I just saw your beautiful granddaughter pop up that she's watching, Lois. I'm going to get her to come in to the room here in a second.
See?
Mark received something in the mail a little while back, Karl, and it had no return address. It had no markings. He didn't even know how they got his address, but they mailed him something. And he was a little bit nervous about opening it up because it had no details on it. You never know what's in mail anymore, right?
No.
So what he eventually opened it up, and it was for you. And it's nobody knows where it's come from. Nobody knows who sent it, when they sent it, or any of that. But Lois is going to bring it into the room for you now. We're going to show you for the first time. I saw a picture of it. It is such a beautiful sentiment from someone that we don't even know who it was. Now, Lois is standing behind you now. She's going to present you with this plaque, or plaque, as you would call it. Hi, Lois. Thank you for doing this, darling. So if you want to just give that to Grandpa there for a second. You got this. She's got this here for you.
In appreciation to the most winning car owner and mechanic in the world, we are forever grateful for the impact you have made to the world of sprint cars. You have made this sport what it is today, and most of all, thank you for the respect you have shown to your fans.
Aha.
Would you look at that?
Quite nice, really.
Yeah.
It's a little heart tugging.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Uh-huh. Well, what was it? 20 years old? I was young once, that proves it.
Isn't that, Lois, can you hold that towards us for a second, darling, and just show us what that looked like? So we don't even know who sent this, Karl, that you got sent to Mark. He didn't want to open it. He was too scared to open it. This is just sent by some fans that wanted to remind you of the impact that you've had on. And I think, and Lois, you're a proud granddaughter. You've got the most amazing grandpa, I think, that many of us have ever known. He's still so loved. Do you get an idea of that?
He is very humble.
Yeah. Crazy as a bed bug. But we love that.
Okay.
I hope you get a sense, Karl, of the impact that you've had on not just the racing world, but people's lives. So many people got so much enjoyment from watching what you did with those cars, but also how you were with people. I hope that you look back on what you've done with a real sense of pride, mate.
Well, at the racetrack, you know, other mechanics or whatever would come around and, you know, ask me about their car or what, you know, I thought or whatever. And I said, well, before I tell you anything, I don't know what you've heard or whatever, but whatever I tell you is the truth. I never lied to a guy in my life, never run a World of Outlaw race illegally, cubic inch, or whatever been tore down, I don't know how many times. But I said, whatever I tell you, if you've already tried that or disbelieve me, don't do it. Just use your own knowledge and you'll finally find something that works. So anyway, that's when I was down in Australia, you know, the guys down there, we was a little bit before their time in parts and
Yes.
materials and all that. And, that was an experience.
The cars were spectacular. Black and gold, John Player specials, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kelly,
Yeah.
Randy, Steve, and Mark. Like just I remember watching you at Speedway Park in South Australia, and you all hot lapped in each individual corner, and you had the crew uniforms. And boy, you talk about how you said that first car was ugly at the Nationals. Those things were gorgeous, Carl.
They were. I have, you know, they had a plaque or a photo of there by the bridge in Sydney, and
Yeah.
I look at that today, and it's sentimental. It's to say the least.
Yeah.
I have a story I'll tell you about Australia when we get into it. It is, to me, it's hilarious.
Tell me, go on, tell me.
We're at, I think it's Adelaide.
Yep.
And they're what they call a hill or a mountain when you come out of Adelaide.
Yes, Adelaide Hills. Yep.
Okay. Brian Healy, excuse me. He was from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Him and a couple brothers over there or whatever.
Yep.
But he bought this tow vehicle for us to tow the race cars, 2 on the truck, 2 on a trailer. And Elrod was a truck driver in the USA. He comes over with us to drive the truck. So me and Elrod get over there about a week early before the drivers get there and all that. So we're looking at the truck, and I open the hood on this thing, and it's got a little old motor in it about this long, diesel.
Yep.
And Brian, I said, Brian, will this haul 4 cars and whatever? Oh yeah, I said they take this to the boat, put 4 cars on it, haul them to the dealers and all that. I thought, well, hell, if it haul 4 cars, it'll haul these race cars. No problem. So the very first race is at Parramatta there. Just before you get to the racetrack, about a half mile from the track, you driving here, and then there's a little bank, pretty steep, a stoplight at the top of the bank.
Yep.
Okay. We stop at the bottom of the bank on account of traffic. The light changes. The Elrods are driving. And this thing barely, almost never made that grade. And a guy on a bicycle passed us. Now, this is a fact. We get to the top, and Elrod said, I'll tell you what. He said, get a truck driver or an airplane ticket. I'm not driving this GD thing. That's the truth. So Brian, he was a friend of his, was over there from California, I think. I forget his name, I know it. But anyway, we're at Adelaide, raced there, and they're coming back to Sydney with they's hauling the cars.
Yep.
So we get back there, and here they come, day and a half late. I said, where you been? We've been running wide open with this tow rig. And the boy that was driving the truck, Brian's friend, he said, let me tell you something about this. He said, coming out of Adelaide on the hill, he said, we got her in the lowest gear we got, We pulled the throttle wide open, and he said, we get out and walk beside this truck, and flies would fly in the truck and out and around the windshield and back in. And that's a fact. That's how, and I got thinking, well, 4 cars, well, hell, they never had no hills, all flat. From the boat to the car dealer, they never went to Adelaide.
Carl, Sammy Swindell has just tuned in to watch. I noticed that Sammy is watching right now. I have a very funny story that Al Parker told me recently from Newton. He was doing, or Newton, he was doing your motors and he was doing Sammy's at the same time. And
Okay.
but he wasn't telling you guys that.
No, I never knew it.
So you made an appointment to come and get your motor, and Sammy, he wanted to come and get his motor, and Al was very nervous because neither one of you guys knew that he was doing. And he's arranged Sammy to get there like half an hour after you're supposed to leave, and it's getting to like 15 minutes. He said he's got sweat on his forehead. He's thinking Sammy's going to pull up and see your truck. You've taken the truck and off you've gone. You never saw each other. So just recently, only a couple of weeks back, Al Parker told me he told Sammy that story. No, I was doing both your motors. And Sammy leaned in and said, so who had the biggest horsepower? And Al said, Steve and Karl had 75 horsepower on you. Well, Sammy sit back. He goes, so I guess I was the better driver.
I'll tell you, he was pretty damn good.
Oh my
Pretty
goodness.
good.
What an incredible rivalry you have with Sammy.
Well, you know, the competition, he's one of the main guys to outrun, and how you couldn't ignore that. You know, if you did, he'd probably outrun you every race, you know. And but anyway, Sammy, he learned to drive at West Memphis, Arkansas. His dad drove there. An old gumbo track, sticky, you cannot believe. Oh my God, the first time we went down there, didn't even have it. I put the right front tire on the left rear to try to get around the corner with that much stagger. Wow. It was unbelievable. And I heard a lot of stories, you know, about West Memphis and all this. And Sammy won about every race there. And hey, I'm telling you, he's pretty good, pretty good.
I bet he's smiling right now.
The last time I went to Knoxville. Sammy leading the feature of the Nationals and blew a tire going into 3. And before the race was started, I wasn't running. And I told Sammy, I talked to him a little bit, and I said, well, good luck, you know. And he had to race. He's going to win the race if it hadn't blew that tire.
Yeah.
And after it's over, I walked by and Sammy's standing there, and I said, well, you had this one, wasn't for bad luck. And he did, you know. And if a guy's good, he's good. You know what? I don't care if he's throwing a baseball or running a track or whatever you're doing. If you're good at it, I think you know it and he knows it. You know. And
the beauty of Sammy was he has that incredible innovative brain that you have, Karl, where he loves the science as much as he loves the speed.
Well, Sammy did all of his own mechanics, you know, what I mean, at home and all that. And like I say, you know, Steve, he'd care less. He knew I was going to have it ready. If he come down, he'd just walk around and leave, you know, boo and hide, whatever. But I guess that was good for him. Maybe that gave him an ego. Well, I got to show him how good I am too. So there you are. And
he said to me, Sammy said to me last year, Steve had Karl. He said, I had to be Karl as well as Steve, you know, with what I did. So you're right. He had to focus on every aspect of that car, where Steve got in and drove it, you know, and had that. Karl, I can't even begin to thank you enough for your time today. You are such an influence, even to this day, long after you stopped wrenching on race cars. but people love you as a person, mate. And I should be saying sir, not mate. It's very
Yeah, there. What'd you say?
mate, right? It's a good thing. It means
Well,
friend.
good on you.
It means friend, okay? Thank you so much.
When we went to Australia, the most confusing thing, okay,
Yeah.
the streets are narrower than here, okay? The road signs were all knocked down because if a truck tried to make the corner, he ran over the road sign. The road sign would be over here tacked up on a building or something.
Yes. Yes.
We were there for 3 months and probably lost for 2.5 months. It wasn't as bad in Tasmania because they weren't as many roads. But we circled a motel for probably half an hour. You could see it, but we couldn't get there. And people, well, how do you get to that motel? Well, you go down here to the road and whatever. Well, you get down there and there's a creek, a rain drain that crossed. Well, there ain't no damn bridge on it. Now what do? Well, you turn left or right and you go about 4 or 5 miles and you can get across. And when you come back, you are lost.
Oh my God.
Oh, it was mind-boggling.
I'm so glad.
My wife told me, she said, I'm telling you, she said, if you ever bring me back to this God-forsaken country, I'll kill you. The restaurants were all what they call a takeaway.
Yep.
You get fish and chips rolled up in a newspaper.
Yep.
With the takeaway, you walk out. It ain't but a 10-foot square.
Yep.
It was definitely an experience. But I'm telling you one thing, the Aussies appreciated the Americans over the Second World War. Everybody that knew anything about what happened,
Yep.
they thank God for America.
There's an incredible affinity between our countries, Karl. There's this beautiful respect. And you know yourself, over the years, you raced against a lot of Aussies here.
Yes.
And of course, during the time that you raced, you know, Gary Rush and Max Dumsney and George Tatnell and Steve Brazier, and of course, Gary, you know, as well. When you went to Western Australia, you would have raced against Alf Barbagallo and Noel Bradford and Ray Geneve and Bill Sutherland. And so you raced against the best in the world in Canada, Australia, and the USA. And that's remarkable for a little kid from Oolitic, Indiana. That's not bad.
We, one of the experience, I wasn't involved in it, but Gary Rush had built a brand new race car, never had raced it. Went to that little bull ring outside of Sydney.
Liverpool.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yep.
Concrete wall around it.
Yep.
Okay. Tatnall,
Yep.
the radiator man.
Yep.
Okay. He was there. And I heard a lot of talk about Tatnall. Well, he'll crash before it's over. Or he won't make it to the end. And yeah, watch out for him. Well, Tatnall drew an early number to qualify. He drew a good number. He started up, I think, second row in the feature or whatever it was. And Gary's behind him in my brand new car. I mean, new. Gary told me how much he had in it. It was astronomical, the cost of getting everything over there from America and all this. He's following Tatnall and waiting for a good chance to pass him.
Yep.
Tatnall gets wide in 3 and 4 and gets out into loose. Gets all sideways, stood him a stopping, zoomed down across the racetrack and hit Rush in the tail guard, turned Rush sideways, stepped him right into the concrete wall, tore that brand new car up. I mean, up. Guess what? The race is over. Gary goes up and puts some knots on the Tatnall's head. or was it Tatnall?
No, it was Sid Moore.
Sid Moore. Yeah, I wasn't Tatnall.
As you were telling me that story, I'm thinking, That was
His
Melinda
son was.
Dumsney's mum. That was Melinda Dumsney's dad, Sid Moore, because Sid and Gary had a fierce rivalry. Yep. And Liverpool was asphalt then. Yep.
Yeah, it was. Oh boy, I felt sorry for Gary, but racing. But I mean, it sure got in his pocketbook.
Yeah.
This he told me about coming to the USA to run the Nationals, Gary.
Yep.
And this lady on the plane asked him, said, "Well, what do you do?" And of course, with the Aussie accident, he said, "Well, I race cars," but she thought he said cows.
Oh.
And she said, she's from the USA. She said, "You race cows?" She said, "I never heard of that in my life. Where at?"
I love the way you just accidentally or inadvertently called it the Aussie accident, not the Aussie accent. I love that. I know that my friend Tony Bockhoven is watching at the moment, the Knoxville Raceway announcer. He has some incredible stories to do as well. My friend Kendra Jacobs is tuned in watching as well. So is Dean Jacobs. Karl, I can't thank you enough for today. I'm so privileged to be one of the people to do this with you. You're such a remarkable person. Regardless of what you've done with the race car, it's you as a person that everyone loves the most. Thank you. Would you please say thank you to your beautiful wife for all that she did to let you to be doing the things that you did? And thank you to Lois. Thank you to Mark for finally opening up that parcel. Whoever sent that.
Well, first time I'd seen that.
Yeah. So
I had my old work shirt on. That's pretty early.
God bless you, Mr. Kinser, because you have changed the game for so many people and influenced so many people. Your mama would be so proud of you, mate.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if it's to do it all again,
Yep.
I might have done a few things a little different, but not much. So
I'm glad you didn't. Would you have a wonderful day today? And please know how loved and truly adored you are, Karl.
Thank you.
Good to see you, mate.
Yeah.
Sir. You sure did do a good job driving and setting up all those cows over the years.
Yeah.
Would you please say hoop de blah for me one time, because you did say all that hoop de blah and I've loved it ever since.
The hoop de ball got them.
Good to see you, Karl.
Yeah, they was maybe concerned before we even got there.
Have a wonderful day. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
See you, mate. Oh my goodness. What an amazing, amazing man. Thank you, Lois.
Thank you.
Isn't he just the coolest cat ever? Oh my gosh. I got to go, but I hate it. It's so good talking to him. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Please share this. Please share that video, because my goodness, what an icon. Have a great day, everybody. Be safe. That was the legendary Karl Kinser.